What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent Axe. We're live here on the Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page. We're live on Twitter and live on YouTube as well. And we are coming off the heels of, frankly, a complete no-show by the Syracuse basketball team tonight. They fall to Clemson 91-73. A lackluster effort for the Orange, a complete wire-to-wire dominance by the Clemson Tigers in this matchup, who hit 14 three-pointers on Syracuse. They dish out 28 assists on 34 field goals, and just from start to finish put their paws on the Orange and did not let up. Syracuse falls to 16-12 on the season with the loss, 9-8 in ACC play, and certainly Syracuse played itself late tournament contention a while ago. They're not even a guarantee for the NIT at this point. They could be playing themselves out of that with just 3 games to go on the season. Syracuse will go to Pittsburgh on Saturday, another good team. And, Clemson had come into this matchup having lost 4 of their last 5 and really struggling and kind of fallen off the NCAA tournament bubble. They are still, hovering a little bit around there, but Clemson certainly looked like an NCAA tournament team tonight. They looked like the better team. They looked like the team that at one point this year had been first place in the ACC, and a team that just plays so much better at home. So let's start going through some of your comments here, and then we'll go over the numbers. Joe says it well. They just hit another three-pointer. So Duke had 13 three-pointers. Clemson adds 14. Matt with it about as simple as it can get. Well, that was a stinker. Chris saying, well, that was special. Thomas here, my God, can it get any worse? Let us not tempt fate, by the way, and say that. Let's just kind of take what we can get at this point. At least we didn't lose to Boston College, as Virginia did tonight. Anthony bringing up one of the big upsets in the ACC. Jeff says, time to look ahead to next year, but honestly, this team could be worse if Mintz is gone and his coach determined to destroy his legacy. Sure seems like it. Now, listen, the Mintz thing is just the answer to all your questions. The eye turns towards next year. Everybody's going to be wondering what Judah Mintz is going to do, whether he comes back to Syracuse for another year or tries his luck at the pro level. I saw a 2024 NBA mock draft today from Jonathan Gavoni of ESPN, who puts Mintz as a first-round pick, but that's in 2024. That's assuming he comes back for another season, right? Does Judah Mintz want to come back here? That's what this all turns into. Questions about next year. Is Jim Boeheim coaching next year? Is Judah Mintz back next year? Does Joe Girard and Jesse Edwards use their COVID years to come back, an extra year of eligibility? Like, this is all about next year, because this year is just a wash at this point. This is not a team that's capable of winning 4 in a row in Greensboro to win the ACC tournament. I mean, did you see how Syracuse got shredded apart on defense in these last 2 games? Duke hitting 13 threes, Clemson hitting 14. They get absolutely nothing from the forward position. How many field goals did Jesse Edwards end up with tonight? We'll go fully inside the numbers here. Jesse takes 8 field goals after taking just 3 the other night against Duke. Surprised to even end up with 12 points and 10 rebounds on the night. He did end up with a double-double, but the quietest double-double you'll ever see in your life. Antonio noting how pathetic the zone was in this game tonight. Chris says, not sure what was more embarrassing, the effort of their coaching. Chris, that really surprised me, to be honest with you. This team, I said it right at the beginning there, they just completely no-showed. Like, the effort wasn't there. The air was out of the balloon. Any cliche you want to use here at this point, this team just did not show. Clemson took a 13-3 lead early and just kind of kept building on that up by 20 at one point, and just complete and utter domination in this game. As Dale notes, frustrating seeing our guys, with few exceptions, out-hustled night after night. No excuse. They may have better talent, but they shouldn't have better hustle. Joe wondered if Saturday's bedwetting, if they were going to check out, and it looks like that they have. Yeah, that Duke game felt like a major gut punch, but this was, an important game. Could have played spoiler on Clemson, maybe even knock them out of NCAA tournament conversations, pick up, what would be a quad 2 win for Syracuse. Not that that matters anymore, because they're not going to make the tournament, but just a quality win to add to the mix on the road. Syracuse had won 5 road games up to this point, but it was the dregs of the ACC. All the teams at the bottom of the league, this would have at very least popped out as a quality road win. Maybe they can do that at Pitt on Saturday, though I doubt it the way they're playing right now. But I mean, that zone defense, Ben brings it up here. Brent, you've been correctly predicting all season that Clemson was a matchup nightmare against the zone. And look, Ben, I wish I wasn't right about that. I wish we saw a more competitive game. But I have seen this coming for weeks. We've talked about it here on the post-game show. I've talked about it on the radio as well, that Clemson was just a nightmare of a matchup for Syracuse because of their three-point shooting, their physical defense. I mean, I knew Duke would be a big problem. I was almost more afraid of this game. And if anything, this game, you have 2 games in a row where Syracuse just got a haymaker early and didn't recover from it. For Duke, it was the 21-2 run that they went on in the first half. In this game, it was just Clemson bombing threes left and right. Hunter Tyson had 29 points, right? As Scott notes, Boeheim said if Syracuse was losing games by 20, then that would be an issue with him coming back. Well, that's 2 in a row with a third butt kicking. I'll edit myself. They're coming Saturday after he threw the Pittsburgh program under the bus. Joyless basketball, as Joe notes here, from cradle to the grave. Matt says it's simple. Syracuse has only outshot opponents from three times in ACC play. Most other games, not even close. Shooter's game, and the D is built up to give up threes. You guys are mentioning it here, and I'll tell you, my Twitter feed was just all about the zone. People are sick of the zone. They're not even playing the zone well. Look, it's one thing if that zone's effective, if you've got big guards at the top of the zone and it becomes the enigma that it is for opposing teams. Look, people just know how to shoot the three in college basketball these days. The zone does not bewilder anybody, particularly teams in the ACC that you see year in and year out. Clemson, you typically only play once, and they went out there tonight. I don't think the zone bothered them, not to mention 28 assists. 28 assists. That's the most in the Brad Brownell era in Clemson. And Boeheim had the gall earlier this year to say that assists are an overrated stat against Syracuse because of how people just, pass on the 3-point line, one pass, shoot three. Well, yeah, that's the point, because there's so much ball movement. There's so much opportunity to move the ball and get good looks against what is, frankly, been a pathetic zone defense. Like, how much worse can man-to-man be? How much worse can your man-to-man be when this is what your zone's doing? I shudder to think. Maybe I shouldn't even tempt fate and bring that up here. So a couple more from you guys, and keep going in the comments here. I just want to go over some numbers here shortly. Brian says, I don't need Boeheim to retire. I need Boeheim to retire the 2-3 zone. Blake says that Judah had a nice game. He's really improved during the year. Look, that's the only positive from tonight. And it's strange to see Jesse Edwards get a double-double and say that Judah Mintz is the only positive. But Jesse Edwards did not go in until it was way too late. Only took 8 field goals in this game. That's just, for Jesse Edwards to have a combined 11 field goals in the last 2 games, I can't even comprehend how bad that is for the Syracuse offense. I'll give credit to Duke and Clemson's defense in a way for forcing Syracuse into that scenario. But, how can that happen at this point? It can't, right? The Cuse hit a deeper bottom tonight, according to Bill. All right, you guys keep going at it here a little bit. I'm just going to go over some numbers here. Look, wow, I just refreshed the comments here. I am way behind you guys. You are going at it here, but keep doing it, baby. Iris jumps in late to the conversation, but that was depressing. Jeff says SU does not run an offense, ISO ball the last several seasons. Michelle agrees, saying they don't move the ball enough and not regularly at all. Mark saying, how about those Boston College Eagles? Nice win over Virginia tonight. Skylar saying, I'm just as frustrated as a fan because the Syracuse program can be better. Julie saying, Benny made the last 2. I only saw the very end of the game. Yeah, strange circumstance at the end there. Michael says, does Judah have anything to gain from another season on a mediocre team? A fair question to ponder at this point, Michael. Let me give you some numbers from this one. Not that we need to. Clemson just dominated, but it'll give you a sense of how much they dominated this game. So they shot 52%. Syracuse actually ended up shooting 47%, but they went into halftime, I think, only shooting 38% in the game. They got some high percentage looks at the end around the hoop that boosted their percentage, but 14 of 36 Clemson was from 3-point range. Syracuse 12 of 17 at the free throw line. They got to the free throw line a heck of a lot more. It balanced out later in the game as Clemson ended up with 15 free throws, but free throws, dare I say, did not matter much when Clemson's up 16, 18, 20, 14 points for most of this one. Clemson dominates in the paint by a mark of 38-26, 28 assists on 34 field goals. That's just mind-boggling that a team could do that against any defense, let alone a zone defense. Syracuse countered with 9 assists. Their ball movement was just absolutely pathetic in this game, to be frank. Torrance had 4. Jesse had a couple assists in this one. Even Judah didn't dish out a lot of assists in this game, just 1 for him, but absolutely pathetic on Syracuse's part there. So, look, that tells you what happened. But to see Hunter Tyson with 29 points, he's 6 of 12 from three-point range. Chase Hunter with 13 points for Clemson. Galloway hits a few from three-point range. He ends up with 15. P.J. Hall with 16 points, 8 of 11, dominated in the paint, had an unbelievable dunk in this game. Can we match him up with Mac McClung and have a rematch of the NBA slam dunk competition? That was a hell of a dunk from P.J. Hall. My goodness. Syracuse, not much to report here, but Judah Mintz had 23 points, 8 of 15. He had 4 3-pointers in this game, which if you're a Syracuse fan, that's bad news. That sounds weird to say, but if you want Judah Mintz to stay, the benefit of staying, as Michael's comment was brought up there a couple seconds ago, you want him to come back to develop parts of his game, namely the three-point shot. You don't want him to pick up momentum hitting threes if you want to give him incentive to come back for another season. Look, I don't think Judah's going to get picked in the first round this year. I think he'd barely get picked in the second round this year, frankly. But it's a matter of, can you counter with NIL money, motivation, reason to come back, develop your game versus, go to the G League, right? He would get drafted. He would be a professional next year, but does he want to wade in the G League or come back and at this point, you'd have to question the motivation to come back to Syracuse. But if you can get Joe and Jesse and Judah to make another run, Syracuse added William Patterson to the class of 2023 this past week, 7'2" big man, hit the portal because the forward position on this team is just, it's lackluster. I'll be nice and say that. I mean, Bell ended up with 7 points and 3 rebounds. Malik Brown, I like Malik Brown, but his offensive game has a lot of room to grow. Just 5 points, 2 rebounds on the night for him. Justin Taylor continues to struggle. I came in, played 11 minutes, took a couple of shots, barely could get shots off. You mentioned Benny Williams scored a bunch at the end, so that 9 points is deceiving. I mean, that forward position has just been lackluster is the word I'm going to use this year. So not that we needed to hear the numbers. You guys watched the game and saw it, but for just a little bit of perspective there. Back into the comments with you. If Jesse isn't getting the ball, he's not scoring. If he's not scoring, he's not effective in his activity away from the ball. This prevents the opening of opportunities for more offensive movement and openings for the creation of scoring opportunities for his teammates. Well said there from Rob. Chris notes, first time in a long time I can recall Syracuse players chirping at each other throughout the game. A lot of frustration out there for sure. Riley says, Mintz doing everything he can. Every team beats our press and gets easy buckets. A 3-point fest for teams. Time to go man-to-man. Mintz deserves a better team. Jesse isn't strong enough. We need a good 5 position. Look, I'm still a Jesse Edwards fan. He has not had a good past couple of games. The weaknesses are showing there. He does have to get bigger. Duke pushed him around. Not that Clemson had the size outside of P.J. Hall to do the same, but they do play a physical, taxing defense, which affected him. And again, we're talking about a guy that had a double-double tonight, but numbers are very deceiving in that sense, right? Williams says, been a fan since 76. First duty station in Syracuse, 78. Play physical, you beat Syracuse. The game plan is out. Rebounding not there. Edwards losing the ball in an open dunk and jogging back on defense. That's what I hated to see tonight. I hated to see that lack of effort. I hated to see this team. Look, easy for me to say we're not out there playing, but, the air went out of that balloon early. Clemson took a 13-3 lead. We're in control of the game going into the first TV timeout, and Syracuse just never recovered. They just never came out and played the way they needed to. You can make up for a lot of things with effort, the zone in particular, but I mean, the numbers bore it out. 28 assists, 14 3-pointers, just complete dominance. And look, Clemson plays so well at home. You had to expect that. You have to go overtime when it comes to effort and trying to match what they do because of how well they play at home. They're 8-1 at home now, and that one loss was only 4 points to Miami. one of the better teams in the league at this point. The only difference was that Dick Vitale was not there to read the eulogy at the end of the game. If you were watching the end of the Duke game there, for sure. Brian says Bill Murray just called to say it's Groundhog Day again. All right. Just catching up with you guys here in the comments. Christopher says they have no motivation to play hard. It's about trying to look good for scouts. They aren't making the NCAA. Nobody cares about the NIT. It is what it is. I hope that's not the case, Michael, but that's how they looked out there tonight. It's hard not to think that. Has this team packed it in? Does this team know they're not making the tournament? NIT is not a motivation. I think they know deep in their heart they can't win 4 in a row in Greensboro, right? It would be a hell of a story if they did. Virginia Tech did it last year, but Virginia Tech had so many qualities this team does not. That was a better defensive team. I remember one game last year, Hunter Couture went off for 31 points. Virginia Tech had to beat Duke and North Carolina on the way in that ACC tournament to earning their NCAA tournament bid, and those turned it out to be 2 Final Four teams. Now, I know North Carolina, who, by the way, that's pretty much locked in that Syracuse is going to play North Carolina in the first round of the ACC tournament. Syracuse did get the bye, so technically the second round, but their first matchup in the 8-9 game. North Carolina, look, Syracuse got boned by the refs at the Dome and could have beat North Carolina. As bad as North Carolina's been down the stretch, they always struggle with that team, particularly rebounding, and that'd be a real tough test for Syracuse to start off with, let alone who they'd play in the next round, who I want to say it would be, man, they showed the bracket tonight. I think the next round would be Virginia or Miami, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, but that's the point. Like Virginia Tech had to last year, they had to beat 3 really good teams in the ACC tournament. How does Syracuse, with the way this defense is playing, beat anybody 1 in a row at this point, let alone 4 in a row that they'd have to do at the tournament? So I just don't even want to talk about it at this point because it's not even worth it. Denise wonders, what will it take to get the spark back in this team? Boy, we were just talking about it, Denise, because there's no motivation for the tournament. They can't win 4 in a row at the ACC tournament. The NIT is not any sort of carrot to dangle in front of this team. Judah Mintz still plays his butt off, but we saw it tonight with still a lot on the line. I mean, just playing for pride even at this point should get the spark back in this team. But when you run an ISO-based offense, you run a defense that's predicated on effort and being sharp mentally and being in your spots and knowing where to be, and that's the kind of effort we saw tonight when they got punched in the gut again. I don't know. Like, people brought it up. It is Miami that they would play in the next round. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate that. Because I think that switched when Virginia lost tonight. I think it actually was going to be Virginia, but it is now Miami. You guys are right. But anyway, that's the question, Denise. How does this team get through these last 3 games, and then whatever happens in the ACC tournament to go down with a fight? They were chirping at each other tonight, as you mentioned, and you don't want to see a team fall apart at the end of the year. No matter what awaits them afterwards, which we know is not March Madness, you don't want to see a team just fall apart at the end of the season. So they really got to gut check it here. The seniors on this team, Joe and Jesse, have to really rally these guys. They have to have a better showing, and going to Pittsburgh is going to be tough. The Peterson Event Center, the Oakland Zoo, as they call it, has become one of the best home court advantages in college basketball again, after Pitt had some down years, and that place was a shell of itself. Well, they're one of the top teams in the league. Now, they're still trying to kind of lock down an NCAA tournament berth. If I had to put money on it, I think Pitt's going to be there. But, Pitt had Syracuse by 20 at the Dome. It ended up being a 2-point game. But Pitt's a much better team now than they were when they dropped the hammer on Syracuse really early in ACC play. So, I mean, it just doesn't get easier there. Then you get Georgia Tech, and then you get Wake Forest, which will be fun because that'll be the anniversary of the 2003 national championship team. And Jerry McNamara and Hakeem Warwick will get their jerseys retired. By the way, guys, if I could take a moment for some self-promotion here, but you guys are going to love this, okay? We have put together a film. It's called Will to Win, which is a documentary about the 20th anniversary of the national championship team. For those of you that live here in Syracuse, it is going to premiere at the Landmark Theater on March 29th. And we're going to have former players and coaches from that team there. We're going to have, it's the Landmark, which is amazing to premiere this at the historic Landmark Theater downtown Syracuse. We got some other goodies and some surprises that we'll say for now. This movie is incredible. I have been privy to some details behind the scenes. I'm not going to give away anything. I mean, spoiler alert, Syracuse wins the national championship, but interviews, insight, things about that team that you have never heard before. This is going to be incredible, right? So nothing like a little splash of nostalgia to make you feel better. So just kind of mark that on your calendars, friends. I know a lot of you watch from out of town and maybe can't be in Syracuse for the premiere. We'll give you details after that, how you can see it beyond the premiere here in Central New York. But that's something to look forward to. It's an incredible production. We have such talented people that work on this. And I've done a little bit of work on it. I can't take a lot of credit. I've done some stuff on it. We've had people that have just been pouring buckets of effort into this thing the past few months, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. So just wanted to mention that while that was in mind. Chuck says, how can Q's compete next year if they lose Edwards, Gerard, Torrance, and Mintz? The answer is they can't. They can't if they lose all those guys, right? You got to hit the portal hard. They only have one recruit in the class of 2023, even if Marcus Adams commits and will be a part of the class of 2023. It's a lot of guys to lose and be competitive, right? I think the answer is they can't unless they go out there and just absolutely destroy it in the transfer portal, which I just don't see happening at this point. They'll get guys out of the portal, don't get me wrong. You get a J.J. Starling out of the portal if he goes in. I mean, that's something, but that'd be a lot of work to do if all those names you mentioned moved on. Skylar notes it here. The women's team is going to make the NCAA tournament. They're right there on the fringe. They got to take care of business against Pitt tomorrow, and Pitt's one of the worst teams in the ACC. And then Syracuse is pretty much locked into the 8-9 game on the women's side, too. They'd play NC State at this point. They probably have to win that game, too, to ensure itself an NCAA tournament bid. But Charlie Cream, who is ESPN's main bracketologist for women's basketball, he's got him in the tournament. That win that Felicia Leggett-Jack's team had over Miami on Sunday, huge. I wrote a column about that today. I hope you guys can check it out on syracuse.com. So there will be March Madness for the women's team, right? So we'll shift our focus over to them at some point soon here. Mike says that Edwards would not get a guaranteed contract if he went to the NBA. He would play professionally somewhere, maybe back home in the Netherlands or in Europe, but I agree that at this point, he's just not big enough. You can't play in the league if you're going to get shoved around like that against NBA caliber players like PJ Hall and Kyle Filipowski and what Duke brought to the table on Saturday, right? So I like Jesse, and I still think Jesse could be a really good player, but what we've seen the last two games is his weakness. When you play physical teams that really challenge you and push you outside, he doesn't respond well to that. He's still, there's some guys, man, they can lift weights, they can eat 20 pizzas a day and just do all that stuff, and they just don't pack on the pounds. Metabolism. To have that metabolism again of a young 21-year-old, right? But he definitely has to continue to work on that and bulk up. He's not ready for the pros from that standpoint. I hope he comes back. They've had a little difficulty with NIL money for Jesse because there's quirky rules with international players. I think they're going to work that out, and I think eventually he will get just as much clearance NIL-wise as his teammates, and that would be a motivation for him to come back next year. Not to mention, I just don't think he's ready for the pros fully. Not that matters. A lot of guys go in not ready and develop their game at the next level, but I think if I'm even NBA team looking at a G League type of thing, I want to more physically develop Jesse Edwards. So that's motivation for him to come back next year. Mike doesn't think Mintz would go first or second. He should definitely stay. He would go second round. I disagree with you there. I think he would get picked. But if he did come back, develop this game, sharpened out his three-point shooting, and just another year better in the skills he's already shown, definite first-round pick next season at this point. You're welcome, Ed. Always great to have you guys here. Dennis says, hey, go Chittenango. There you go. Giving us a couple other teams to root for here. We got lacrosse up and running. Speaking of teams that could do some damage, the Syracuse women's lacrosse team, guys, it's a national championship contender. And I don't say that lightly, but they are. They have every element you need to make a deep run in the tournament. There's a lot of lacrosse to be played. They got to stay healthy, which is huge, but they have depth, they have goaltending, they have overwhelming scoring. This team's good. They could win the national championship. That's how good they are. So something else to start to pivot your attention to as we come down the home stretch here in the college basketball season. Dan says, glad the Phillies back at it. Pitchers and catchers, right? And spring training underway. As a Red Sox fan, let's say I'm not so optimistic about the start of baseball season. Not very happy with what John Henry's been saying lately, the owner of the team, but we shall save that for another conversation. 82 in Fort Myers today. Vince, hope you're enjoying it. There's what are we doing out there? I don't even know if it's snow or sleet or hail, or there's something falling outside my window right over here as a little bit of a mild winter storm comes through central New York right now. Nothing we can't handle, but 82 sounds about nice. Speaking of baseball, speaking of spring training, Vince, I'm coming to your house, baby. Go watch some baseball. Frank says recruit Adams and his brother only coming to the Wake game for the free trip and the experience of the Dome. He's not coming here unless he gets NIL money. Too many big name teams after him. Well, somebody tell Adam Weitzman that. Adam Weitzman got that commitment from Elijah Moore, heavily based on what NIL commitments are made there. So somebody forward that on to Mr. Weitzman to up the NIL deals. He does have some good teams coming after him. You are right about that, but we'll see if that trip to Syracuse can influence his decision in more ways than one at this point. Dave says he still loves the Cuse out in Vegas. Hang it in there. Hang it in there, man. Well, look, that's what's got to happen. You've got to have a team that finishes strong and just the way they play, right? Even if they lose the next three, they can't play the way they did tonight. Disorganized, jawing at each other, just no effort, out-pushed, out-rebound, out-hustled, 28 assists to, what was it? Syracuse ended up with 7 assists on the game. I mean, that's just, I haven't seen what Boeheim said yet. I would assume he's just kind of saying the same crap he's been saying lately, but this team's just got to finish strong as best as it can here. 3 games to go. Push as hard as you can in the ACC tournament. And see, this is the thing. Like, at this point, guys, I don't know about you. So if they don't, Chris Carlson wrote about this today, did a very nice job doing it. If they don't make the NIT, which is sad to be having this conversation, but that's the reality of the situation we're in right now. It would be the first time that Syracuse did not make the postseason in back-to-back years since 1968 and 1969. So Roy Danforth's still coaching here. Nixon's president. Go Woodstock, go through it, right? This is the last time that Syracuse missed the tournament in back-to-back years. Missed the postseason in back-to-back years, pardon me. But you know what? I wouldn't care at this point. I don't want an NIT bid just to avoid that distinction because the NIT is worthless. It's just, what would this team gain by going to the NIT? Specific to what we were talking about with motivation and what they have to play for dignity, as Dale notes here, right? How do you motivate after these blowout games? Outcoached, outclassed, outplayed every way possible. I mean, if the NIT is the carrot at the end of that stick, then you can keep it. Is Melo's son coming to Syracuse? Kathy, I believe he's visiting for the Wake Forest game when the 2003 team will be honored here at Syracuse, and Hakeem Warwick and Jerry McNamara get their jerseys retired. I'm pretty sure Carmelo Anthony's going to be here for that. And I believe his son is coming with him. So are they going to get him to come here? That's another question. If he wants to be a legacy and come in and play at Syracuse. And how long would he play for Jim Boeheim? He committed. That's a class of 2024 player, right? So do you want to play for Boeheim like your dad did, or do you just want to play for Syracuse like your dad did? That is the question at this point. Mike says, go NIT for one and done. That would be worse. Mary Ellen says no NIT. I'm with you there. Not in tournament. That's what NIT stands for. Right, Chris? Exactly. And I think that's a good note to end on here because that's what it feels like the path Syracuse is heading on here after a 91-73 loss to Clemson. Programming notes, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow is Orange Weekly. We will be here for that. That is about a 12 noon start Eastern time on these same channels you're watching now. We'll add in lacrosse channels as well to bring that audience in and talk some Syracuse sports. So that's tomorrow. Come on by just like you're here now and bring us your comments, questions, and we talk all things Syracuse sports. There is no post game for the Pitt game. I'm on lacrosse duty Saturday. The Syracuse lacrosse team, the men's team plays North Carolina at 3. Pitt, Syracuse is 5 o'clock. So those two worlds are going to cross paths, and I am on the lacrosse beat on Saturday. So sorry to say there's not going to be a post game after the Pitt game, but we'll have post games next week to wrap up the season with Georgia Tech and Wake Forest, and then whatever a postseason fate awaits the Orange in the ACC tournament. So come on by for Orange Weekly Thursday about noon Eastern time, and then no post game on Saturday night, just so you guys know. Okay, but we appreciate you being here tonight. We appreciate you guys bringing your comments. If you missed the show live, don't forget that this automatically archives on the channels you're watching now. And I put the YouTube post in my recap at syracuse.com. We fire it off on our social media channels too. Very easy to catch up on YouTube if you missed the show, right? So, Michael, what we mean is no post-mortem after the Pitt game. Exactly. You're welcome for the therapy, Michelle. Thank you, Mark. Saturday thinks it's going to be ugly. Thank you, Dale. You're welcome, Scott. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Thanks for coming by, everybody. And thank you, Steve. We appreciate you doing the show after so many disappointments. And Joe likes the show as well. Really appreciate you guys. Really appreciate your comments. Larry has the last comment of the night. The fat lady is singing. Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, we hope not, but we shall see. Dr. Axe is signing off for the night. Appreciate you guys being by. Syracuse loses to Clemson 91-73. This has been Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health. We'll talk to you guys